See if we can find this little guy. We ran him over. Classic. That's embarrassing. That should have never happened to him, dude. That's so funny. Hey guys, Levelcap here, and today we're jumping back into World of Tanks. It's been a little while since I've played this game, and things look and feel newer. New UI, new tanks, and new music? Well, maybe that music's always been there, but my god is it amazing. Now, with today's video, I especially wanted to look at some of the super heavy tanks, the ridiculously heavy tanks of World War II. Both tanks that actually were created, and also ones that only ever made it to the concept phase. This game does a great job of allowing you to simulate the capabilities of what some of these rolling behemoths could have done if they ever made it to the battlefield. Also, I'd like to thank Wargaming for sponsoring this video. World of Tanks is an excellent free-to-play game. Click the link in the video description to download the game, and be sure to use the code TANKTASTIC when signing up for an account to receive the T127 tank, 7 days of premium access, 500 gold, and 1 garage slot. These bonuses are only available for new players and do not apply to existing accounts. Speaking of which, when I play World of Tanks, I'm usually using my personal account, in which I'm progressing down the German heavy tank armor line, as well as some of the British tank lines. But today I've been given access to a Sheriff account, which grants me access to most of the tanks in the game, including tanks like this bad boy. This is the German Tier 10 super heavy tank, the Maus. The irony of this tank's name is not lost on me. This is the heaviest, fully enclosed armored fighting vehicle ever built, weighing in at 188 tons. That's over 3 times the weight of the German Tiger tank. It used electric motors powered by a gasoline generator to provide enough torque to move the tank, even though it could only reach 14 kilometers per hour. It was too heavy to cross most bridges, and its purpose was to punch holes in enemy defensive lines while taking little to no retaliatory damage thanks to its 200mm thick armor plating. And despite never actually seeing combat in World of Tanks, we can actually let this thing loose and see what it's capable of. As someone of relatively novice skill in this game, I can't fully express the joy it brings me to roll something like this across the battlefield and just watch my enemies' shots literally bounce off my armor. In this particular game, the amount of ricochets off of my armor are insane, and my health doesn't even budge for most of the round despite being targeted and shot dozens of times. Obviously, this isn't always the case even when using super heavy tanks, but when it works as intended, it kind of feels like you're playing with God mode turned on. The tank itself looks like you're driving a single-story house around the battlefield, and quite frankly, that's how it handles as a vehicle. You're not going to sneak up on anyone in this thing, and you're probably going to be the last one to show up to a fight, but there's also a good chance that you're going to be the one to finish that fight. Employing even the slightest bit of angling and you become the biggest armor troll on the battlefield. This tank is tier 10 for a reason, and if you ever have the opportunity to unlock it, I highly suggest it for some good times. Now, speaking of big trolls, the Japanese line of heavy tanks has some true behemoths. Fortunately, for our sake, Japan was never able to complete these tank designs before the end of the war. But after a severe defeat to Russian armor in 1939, Japan began designing super heavy tanks to counter the more advanced threats on the battlefield. That's where they came up with the OI tank designs. These more than 120-ton monsters had 200mm thick frontal armor and 3 cannons, a big cannon on top and 2 smaller cannons in front. Now, the Oni in World of Tanks is a tier 7 evolution of the OI, with a few different weapon options. Sadly, the 2 smaller guns in front are just for show. I'm not sure there would have been any possible way to actually balance something like this in game if all the weapons were fully functional. And it really is kind of funny looking at the size of this tank compared to anything else on the battlefield. It sort of feels like you're in the wrong game looking at these tiny little tanks driving around you. It's truly ridiculous in scale and will absolutely not go unnoticed when you see it rolling around. Especially at tier 6 and 7, these tanks, when showing their frontal armor, are almost impenetrable to similarly tiered opponents. Lower tier tanks may as well just run in the opposite direction. I think I had the most success with this tank in general just because it really doesn't care that much about getting shot, which is perfect for my ham-fisted playstyle of, hey, let's drive at the bad guys and shoot them. It's actually not the worst strategy when you're driving one of these things. Now, from a modeling accuracy perspective and even graphical perspective, World of Tanks certainly does have a nice bit of realism flair to it, but from actual battles and gameplay, it's definitely designed as a game first and a simulator second. Sherman tanks fighting alongside Tiger tanks and whatnot, you might not get the exact feel of a truly authentic battle here, but it is still really cool to see what one of these things might have looked like and fought like if Japan had ever finished its production. And that's something that I really appreciate about this game. Now, a really interesting tank that you may have come across if you ever Googled biggest tank is the T-95, also known as the T-28 Super Heavy Tank. Unlike the OI or the ONI, this thing was actually built and has one of the most unique looking designs of anything I've seen from World War II. 4 different tank treads help this 82-ton monster navigate its way across the battlefield. In real life, this vehicle was designed to attack heavily fortified positions with bunkers and high-caliber weapons, specifically the German Siegfried Line. However, by the time it rolled out of production, the German line had fallen. It was later decided that these would be used for the invasion of Japan, which fortunately never came. In-game, this vehicle is designated as a tank destroyer. Point yourself at the enemy and let your 105mm cannon blast them to kingdom come. Its low profile does make it a difficult vehicle to use when trying to see over bumpy terrain, so good map knowledge is probably vital when playing something like this. I can't say I was amazing with it, but even when I was able to land the odd shot, it generally vaporized my opponent. Running with these massive behemoths in World of Tanks was incredibly fun, and it's a cool way to sort of visualize these fantastical tanks in combat that they never really got to see. World of Tanks is an incredibly fun game, and I really like that the developers put gameplay over simulation. That's something that's always been very important to me. It's got to be a game first and foremost, and it's got to play out well, and that's something that is absolutely apparent in World of Tanks. I myself have become quite addicted to Wargaming's World of Warships game, as it's just a really, really fun experience. Again, if you want to check out World of Tanks for yourself, click the link in the video description, especially if you've never signed up for an account before. Use the code TANKTASTIC, and you'll get a lot of goodies upon signing up. Thanks again to Wargaming for sponsoring this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.